The Iranian Revolution and Christians, how should we view this? And how does this affect everything that's happening in the Middle East and the West and beyond? And what's next? Here with Shahram Hadian at Sanctify Israel podcast, starting now. Welcome to the Sanctify Israel podcast. My name is Jonathan Smith. I'm your host today, and we have a returning guest. I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, Shahram Hadian. Thank you so much for joining us today.
That's great to be with you again, Jonathan. Thank you for having me back on.
Right now, what's happening in Iran is obviously the most pressing issue, I would say, in the Middle East right now. And you have a background. You have family from you are Iranian in that sense, right? You're from Iran. You have family from Iran, so this is deeply personal to you. Shahram, can you please just tell us there's so much, I would say, misreporting or lack of reporting. And as someone that really is just saddened and sickened to see what's going on right now is the Islamic Republic is murdering the civilians and innocent civilians. Can you tell us what is actually happening on the ground right now in terms of the death toll? I know numbers are saying 12,000 to 20,000, but you have some reports saying it's way less than that. You got some that's saying it's more than that. And it's just, there's so much out there right now. What is actually happening on the ground in Iran?
Well, let me just maybe start with the big picture. We have to remember that this is more than probably 60 years in the making. 47 years since the government was overthrown in 1979. And then going before that, the infiltration in Iran, the sabotaging of Iran under the regime of the Shah of Iran has been going on since the 1960s. And so we're talking about this is a generational moment. And people think that, oh, it's just another uprising. No, this is the revolution. This is the movement of the people. What started 3.5, 4 weeks ago as an economic strike quickly turned into we're done with this Islamic regime. We're done with Islamic theocracy. We're done with Islam. I mean, I got to remind people that Iran is so unique in the Middle East because Persians, Iranians are Persians. Persians are not Arabs. We do not have an Islamic backstory. Persia is 32 plus 100 years old. Islam is only 1,400 years old. So there's Persians and Persian history, obviously, in the Bible. We talked about this before, the incredible dichotomy and connection between Persia and the Jewish people, the Persian kings, and how God used the Persians to liberate the Jews, to bring them back out of captivity, to rebuild the temple, rebuild the city walls, have money from the treasury, share the very name and laws of the God of the Bible throughout the province of Persia. This is incredible history. And what we've seen in Iran is that the people are down to their last measure of will, because not only have they suffered under the Islamic oppression, no freedom of religion, speech, total depravity when it comes to women's rights and so forth and so on, but they're now suffering under unbelievable conditions in regards to just daily life, just getting food, water, electricity, gas. Like, it is so bad and has been so bad. The regime not only is oppressed, but now since the uprising started, as you said, we do not have accurate numbers. Iran International 2 weeks ago, or almost 10 days ago, had reported that once the blackout happened, when that day happened, Jonathan, when the blackout happened, I think it was like January 8th, my heart sank because I knew what that meant. I knew it meant they're not going to kill in the dark. They're not going to massacre the people in the dark. They're going to arrest, torture, execute. And I can't even begin to tell you all the stories, but just beyond the fact that they're shooting people in the streets, they are going into the hospitals where people are injured, and they're executing them in their hospital beds because people are reporting everybody's shot in the head. I mean, they may have snipers, but they're not that good. And why do you see pictures of body bags where people have like those stickers on them for, when you go into the hospital and they hook up the EKG to you?
Yes.
or they have tubes coming out of their bodies. Why would people have those and be shot in the head? That's because
Wow.
literally the regime is sending their people into hospitals where the wounded are there, and they're executing them in their beds, or they're taking their
Oh,
bodies and executing them. And
oh,
then, to not make matters worse, if the families want the bodies back, they're being given a bill to reclaim the body, and a bill for every bullet that was used to kill that person. And this is not the
goodness.
first time the regime has done this. They did this back in 1979, exact same MO, and they've done it ever since. We are talking about one of the most brutal, oppressive. Uh, this is, this is on the par of the Nazis. This is on the par. I mean, people have to understand. So that's the overarching picture. The latest right now is Iran is under martial law, and what is very frustrating is the reports that we're getting is that it's not Iranians killing Iranians. The regime has farmed out these massacres to their militias outside the country. They've done this
Mm,
before. They brought in their militias, their Arab militias from Iraq, because there's
mm,
a huge percentage of Arab militias that are in Iraq that are controlled by the Iranian regime. They brought in their Arab militias from Pakistan and Afghanistan. And they're the ones who are doing the killing, because the Arabs hate the Persians. And in many ways, the Persians hate the Arabs because
mm,
we are not Arabs. And I
mm,
don't mean that I hate, but I'm just saying, just kind of historically.
right.
So martial law, there, if anybody dares come out of their houses, they may be shot. There's still blackouts. Very little information is still getting out. Today is when we're recording this is the 19th. So
19th.
we're talking about 11 days now of blackouts. And we do not know the death toll. We do not know. And by the way, yesterday or the day before, the head of Iran's judiciary came out and acknowledged that they basically lied to Trump when they said they're stopping executions,
Mm,
because they said we're accelerating. We're going to move very quickly because they have so many people that they've arrested. So you're not talking about the ones that just been killed. You're talking about the ones that are about to be killed. And I'm very concerned that we're going to be, at the end of this day, we're going to be looking at a 6-figure death toll.
my gosh.
So again, Iran International has already 10 days ago had confirmed from multiple sources that the death toll was at least 12,000. That was 10 days ago. So please don't listen, folks, to these people that are saying, oh, it's only 500 people. I can show you videos where in each video, I can probably count 500 body bags in each video if we just went through the video. So, yeah, this is horrific. And yet much of the world is silent. Much of the media is silent. And certainly much of the church has been silent.
Mm,
And that's
that
been, yeah, go ahead. I'll turn it back to you.
no, that is really the most sickening part, I think. We expect radio silence from the left, from some of these secularists or people that don't really have a godly moral compass to begin with. I mean, that's sad. It's sad and it's sickening, but that's to be expected. But what's even more sickening is the radio silence from quote unquote Christians, the church, conservatives, cultural conservatives, whatever you want to call it, people that are for freedom, people that are for um, God's word. And at the same time, you're seeing probably the most oppressive regime right now on the face of the planet massacring their own people, and radio silence. And this to me is deafening. The sick is very sickening. And I wanted to bring up a clip here. This is Lindsey Graham. And what people will about Lindsey Graham and his political views. I'm just speaking about this specific topic right now, where he is very much sympathizing with the Iranian people. And I'm gonna play this clip from him talking about what is really at stake here.
If the media reports are true, that if the Arab countries are okay with Iran's Ayatollah staying in power, I'm going to reevaluate my entire opinion of the Arab world alliance. I've tried to be very hopeful to build on the Abraham Accords. But this idea of saying one thing behind closed doors, and something else in public is coming to an end. So I've called Arab allies and I said, you need to correct the record. If you don't understand this is the biggest moment for change since the fall of the Berlin Wall, you're missing a lot. This is a religious war. Who wins it at the end of the day? Do the radical Islamic terrorists who want to kill all the Jews because God told them to? What we're facing right now is a moment of decision that will set the course of the future of the Mideast for 1,000 years.
You hear that clip from Lindsey Graham, and he's clearly saying that this is echoing what you said earlier, that this is a moment of critical change that can happen in the Middle East, and that this, I mean, talking about the Berlin Wall, you brought that up as well. I mean, this is akin to that moment right now. So as Americans, how should we view this situation? And should Donald Trump, and again, I'm saying this because there are so many people on both the left and the right saying that America should not engage at all. They should not be involved in this conflict. This is simply something for them to figure out on their own. And Tucker Carlson just recently called Lindsey Graham a neocon for being a warmonger, wanting to go in Iran and do these things. So there's a lot of confusion on this topic. But Shahram, what do you say about what's happening right now, and how should Americans view this? And should we even be a part of this conflict at all? What is your take on this?
Well, that's a great question. Let me go back to where I have been consistently. I think I've tried to be consistent on this. I agree with Lindsey Graham that this is a historic moment. I don't know about 1,000 years, because obviously we know Bible prophecy is in the mix here, that there is some element of an Iranian or Persian involvement that is going to come against Israel in the Ezekiel 38-39 scenario, the Gog Magog.
Yes.
And I know we're going to talk about that maybe later. I have some thoughts about that, because you have another competing prophecy in Jeremiah 49 that talks about Elam. So there is some interesting things there. However, from just a human perspective, yes, this is a huge moment where at the minimum, people should be praying for the liberation of the Iranian people. Because in 1979, when when the Iranian government under the Shah was overthrown and the coup happened, and again, that's his historicity. These people that are like, oh, it was a revolution of the people. Nonsense. Since the 1960s, there was an Islamic Marxist infiltration. We're really in Marxist first, then Islamic infiltration. There's a group today, by the way, that not the neocons, but the people like Tucker Carlson and Rudy Giuliani and some on the right are supporting, which is a group called MEK, the Mujahideen Elk. And they now go by another name that's called the NCRI, the National Council of Resistance of Iran. This entity that is trying to compete with Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, the crown prince, they are trying to set themselves up as sort of the alternative. However, they were part of the problem from the very beginning, because in the 1960s, they were part of the Marxist movement that was trying to overthrow the Shah. And then because of help from the Carter administration, because of help from the CIA, who worked to undermine the Shah, back a guy by the name of Khomeini, who at that time was the cleric that came into Iran. I'm giving you the people the backstory because what's historic about this moment? When Iran fell and went into an Islamic republic, it was the first theocracy set up in the Middle East of its kind in modern history. At that time, Turkey was mostly secularly governed. Egypt was mostly secularly governed. Afghanistan was not under this kind of Islamic theocratic rule as it is today. Syria, Jordan, Lebanon was secularly governed. So all these nations that were secularly kind of governed, yes, they were a Muslim majority, but the leadership, whether they were strawman or dictators or like in the case of the Shah, a monarch, nevertheless, they protected religious freedom. They did not allow Islamic theocratic rule. Once Iran went, it's like in a domino, they all fell. Turkey has now become what I call, it was a movement towards fundamentalism. meaning a strict interpretation of Islam. Lindsey Graham says radical Islam. We covered that on the show last time.
Right.
There's no such thing as
Right.
radical Islam. It's
Right.
either fundamentalism, where you apply it fundamentally, or you don't apply it, and that led to more of a secular rule. So Iran fell, then Iraq fell, then Egypt fell, then Syria fell, then Lebanon fell, and it's not necessarily all in that order, but Iran was the linchpin that has now led to 50 years of fundamentalism from Islam. Islam has fundamentalized the Middle East. What has that meant in practicality? That's really bad for Christians in the Middle East. The Christians have been pushed out or murdered or, pushed out as in the sense of they've lost native areas that, go back 2,000 years to the Bible. That's really bad for, obviously, Israel, because now all these nations like Lebanon, Turkey, Syria, Egypt, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran have all become enemies of Israel.
Right.
So now the Iranian people, who know they made a mistake 47 years ago, they know. You know how many Iranians would, in a heartbeat, take the Shah back?
Right.
In a heartbeat, they'd go back and say, we would take those conditions over what we've endured for 47 years, every time, 10 out of 10, in a split second. So they're trying to right a wrong. The young people in Iran are saying, our parents didn't stand up, so now we're going to stand up. And the majority of those who are dying are under the age of 40 as we speak. Teenagers are being shot. Children are being shot. So, long explanation to say, Iran is not only prophetic, it is historic in the sense of what's going on. This has the opportunity, Jonathan, to shift the Islamic Middle East back to a move towards secular governance. That's what the son of the Shah has promised. If he's able to go back in, they would set up a representative government that would be separation of the mosque and the state, because in Islam there's no separation. And that would mean Iran would be free of Islam. And the reason you have the Saudis and the Qataris and the Emirates and the Kuwaitis and the Bahrainis and Turks, and to some extent Egypt, not supporting the Iranian people right now, is because they don't want to free Iran. A free Iran would mean an Islamic free Iran, and that will upend the entire... Because there's going to be people in those other countries who are going to say, if the Iranians can unshackle themselves from theocratic rule and Islamic dominance and Sharia, then we can too.
Right.
And so this is the threat. So the one thing that Lindsey Graham said that was very important, we're going to reevaluate whether our Arab Muslim neighbors are trustworthy. Yay, hello, thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Hallelujah.
Right.
Because we've been saying all along, stop taking their money, and the irony was, last week I was in Boise, Idaho, speaking to the legislature. 50 miles south of Boise is where the U.S. has gone into an agreement with Qatar to help them build the Air Force facility inside the U.S. Air Force base there.
Right.
Right that morning, both the Qataris and the Saudis told the United States, if you're going to attack Iran, which was on the table, you can't use our Air Force bases. You can't use our bases. I thought, what irony. Here we are in America, bending over backwards to give them a base. They won't let us. So I think what happened was, I think that there is, even though Trump says, no, it was my decision to not attack. And I sorry, it's long-winded, but I'm going to turn back to you. But you asked the question, what should we think and do? From the very beginning, I said, I don't want American boots on the ground. I didn't even want America to attack. I said what I said back last year. They should have let Israel finish the job back in June.
Yep.
Israel literally had airplanes in the air to go and hit Khamenei and hit the remaining of the IRGC when Trump gave them the order. I thought the Jews controlled America. Wait a second. I thought AIPAC and the Jews controlled America. No, Trump gave them the order, turned the planes around, and he gave the lifeline to this demonic Islamic regime again.
Israel had all the momentum. They had
all the momentum.
And they just completely cut it off. America did.
And they had all the assets inside the country. They were well asserted and ingrained because of their incredible intelligence. All that was ruined because now the regime got a chance to regroup. So what I would have wanted to see is, as the Iranian people rose up, what Trump should have done, number one, he should have brought Reza Pahlavi into the sun. Because here's what you don't hear in Iran. You don't hear MEK or some other group. You hear Javid Shah.
Yes.
Long live the Shah.
Yes.
You hear, this is the final battle. Pahlavi will return. That's what you're hearing. So the United States should have said, we hear the Iranian people. I can't believe the White House is saying, well, we're just not quite sure who the Iranians are backing. Are you kidding me? Have you not paid attention to those who are diaspora, the Iranians who are outside Iran, and the ones that are shouting that? Even right now, under martial law, there was a video that was uploaded yesterday. Even under martial law, people are shouting that from their apartments. They can't go on the streets, but from their balconies, they're shouting, death to Khamenei, and they're saying Javid Shah and Pahlavi will return. From their balconies at nighttime, they're shouting that. So Trump should have said, we're going to welcome Reza Pahlavi into the White House. We're going to meet with him officially. We're going to do exactly what we did with Venezuela. We're going to recognize that that's an illegitimate government.
Right.
The moment that, Mr. President, you set a line in the sand, if they kill protesters, that's what you said. You said, because listen, if people were like, America first, let's stay out of it. Jonathan, okay, let's stay out of it. But the moment you come and say, if they kill, we are locked and loaded. That's what he said.
Yeah.
He said, go into the streets to the Iranian people. Take hold of your institutions. And what did he say? Help is on the way.
He did say that. Yes.
So the Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Amen.
So if you want it to be no, fine, be no. But the moment you said yes, and people went into the streets because the president of the United States, when they're putting Trump's name and changing street names to Trump, the people of Iran went into the streets and died and were murdered because our government said help is on the way.
Oh.
And he claims, no, we didn't stop it because of the Arabs. I decided. Why? Because the regime told me they're not going to. Then his line changed, right? The line in the sand changed. Because then it was like, well, if they execute people. Well, hello, Mr. President, since you said that, and since the regime, just yesterday or 2 days ago, there was a video of the head of the Iranian judiciary from the Islamic Republic who went on Islamic TV and said, we lied to the U.S. and to Trump. We are expediting our executions. Nothing is slowing down. We're going to continue. And so I'm not saying the president is naive. I'm saying that if it's kind of like with Gaza, where if we're getting our information from Hamas about the death tolls,
yeah,
you think we're going to trust Hamas?
Right.
Mr. President, where are you getting your information from? Who's telling you that the execution stopped when they were still executing people? As you said that, who's telling you that they're going to stop killing their people as far as on the streets? Who's giving you this information? And because there is so much silence right now from all these evangelical, where are all the, I have not seen one statement from the faith office in the White House, Paula White. I've not seen one statement from those pastors that are around the president who should be giving him moral clarity. Mr. President, you promised, you said, you got to keep and again, I'm telling you, John, I didn't want U.S. involvement. I think let Israel support the people. America could have done cyber attacks. Oh, by the way, one more thing that is a no-brainer. If America wants to do something right now, you guys want to pray? Here's to pray for. And I know the reason I'm bringing this up because I know you're going to play a video of a young woman who went on TV to talk about her dad, who is a member of the regime.
Yes.
And what should be no surprise is the fact that she's going to talk about all the cash they have stashed, all the fake passports, homes outside the country. So simple thing the U.S. should do. Go to all the banks and say, if you have money from anybody within the Islamic Republic, if you don't freeze those assets immediately, because we are putting those sanctions, we will not do business with your bank. Very simple. Freeze their. You want to see the rats leave the ship? You want to see defections? Because we know, Jonathan, why are they bringing militias in?
Right.
They're bringing militias in because of the defections. Because the military and the police internally are saying, we're not going to kill our own people. This is unheard of. Even Hitler didn't kill his own people. I mean, yes, every dictator is paranoid and he kills some of, they always kill some of their own, some of their people that they maybe see as a threat. But they don't generally go about massacring their own people.
Right.
Hitler killed the Jews. He killed Christians. Dictators kill usually. Okay, yes, Saddam Hussein, he gassed the Kurds. Yes, there are bad things, but typically you don't see this type of systematic slaughter of your own people in the tens of thousands. And that's only this time around. So anyway, I know we're going to play that video, but there are things America could do beyond bombing, beyond boots in the ground, cyber warfare, take out their jamming equipment, attack their jamming equipment, so the satellites can come back to life, and Starlink, and people can then get information out. There's things they can do without having to carry an attack. Oh, well, you don't understand, Shahram. Trump said, we're not sure if the attack was going to be successful, so we're not going to do it. Do other things. Freeze their assets. The rats will leave the ship. You'll see how fast these so-called IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps regime people will flip and turn to Resipality when their assets are frozen, when they don't have an escape route, because they know if they don't have an escape route, there's a recompense coming. When this regime falls, they're taking names. They're taking names. And all these people that have blood on their hands are going to be prosecuted and probably executed at some point because it's a capital offense because they killed their own people. So these are things America could have done even if they did not carry. So I'm at the point right now where I'm like, I don't know, honestly, if I can support our administration much longer if they do not act on this, because this isn't just Iran, this is the whole world. This would change the dynamics with Israel, it would change the dynamics with the Middle East, it would change the dynamics because Iran had their hand in every evil act imaginable when it comes to spreading Islam. Sorry for that incredibly long answer.
No, I so greatly appreciate that whole answer because that was all needed. Everything that you just said was all necessary for everyone to understand. And I think one of the things you pointed out was at the bare minimum, if you're a Christian, and let's say you're not a dispensationalist, you're not a Christian Zionist, you don't really know much about the Middle Eastern conflict, whatever it is, at the bare minimum, even the point you brought up about Christians in Iran, the fact that there are Christians in Iran that are being oppressed and can't express their faith outwardly without this oppression should at the bare minimum, then you have some sort of interest in what's happening in Iran and the freedom of the Iranian people at the bare minimum. Let's say you're not a Christian Zionist at all. This should at least evoke your heart into wanting to free the people of Iran for the sake of religious freedom at the bare minimum.
Well, what about all the post-millennialists? So if you're not a premillennialist, if you're not a Christian Zionist, if you're not dispensational and you don't follow Bible prophecy and you believe we're in the kingdom, then if we're in the kingdom, justice should rule, right? So if we're supposed to be in post-millennial, this is the rule of Christ, they claim, kingdom now, then shouldn't justice reign?
Right.
And when you see injustice, shouldn't you speak up? And so exactly right. Their hypocrisy is sickening because they were all about, Israel is a genocidal state. Israel is a homicidal state. Israel is committing ethnic cleansing in Gaza, they claimed. But now when you see a regime, and that was a very different scenario because Israel was attacked. They're at war. This is Iran. This is the regime killing their own people. Because the best way that I've heard the explanation is the Iranian people have basically been hostages for 47 years. the majority of the Iranians, who very quickly after 1979 realized we made a huge mistake. Huge mistake. And by the way, again, America, we have blood on our hands because it was the Carter administration that backed that overthrow of the Shah that has led to this. So we have hands in the blood. So at the very minimum, we should have recognized, as you said, Christians. Hey, just come out, make a statement. We're praying for the persecuted Christians in Iran who go to jail, who have been killed. We're praying for their because what is the longing of every Iranian Christian in Iran? As is my longing. I can't wait for the day that I can go back to Iran, on the streets of Iran, and share the gospel openly. I can't wait for the day we can go back to Iran and worship the Lord Jesus Christ openly. And that's all they're asking for. They want to be able to boldly proclaim the gospel without thinking about the fact that if I share with this person, is this person secretly working for the regime? Is this person undercover and they're going to turn me in, and they're going to turn our house church in, and now they're going to be arresting us and my whole family, and in jail, torture, and potentially execution for the charge of being a spy or apostasy or whatever they're going to charge them with. So that's a great point. And but again, beyond that, like just from a human perspective, you see beautiful young people murdered, unarmed, right?
Yeah.
This is not an armed conflict where we could say
Right.
one side has guns, the other side has guns. We're talking about unarmed civilians who
Right.
are now the Iranians are saying, we might as well die because we can't live like this anymore. We don't have food. We don't have water. It takes literally a day's wage to buy just basic food. It takes an entire day's wage to buy one meal. The currency in Iran is it's worse than toilet paper. It is at record numbers. When I left Iran, 1 toman was, 7 toman was $1. It was a pretty good currency, meaning if we took our Iranian money and converted it to US dollars, we can get quite a bit for it. Today, 7 to 1 is 145,000 to 1.
Yeah,
So
it's worthless.
Just so people can understand, that's like the equivalency of you going to a dealership and buying 20 to 25 cars to pay for 1 day of food.
Jeez.
So if you went to the dealership and bought about a $20,000 to $30,000 car, 20 to 25 times over, that's how much it costs now to buy 1 day's worth of food in Iran. So they are decimated. They have nothing to live for anymore. Not the Christians, of course, but So that's part of what's been so grieving and frustrating. Is all my post-millennial fulfillment theology, replacement theology, bashing Israel friends have been dead silent on this issue.
The radio silence from Christians, again, that's really what's been sickening. And just to give you guys some more mathematical context here, so the Gazan war, over 2 years, I would say the numbers, they estimate the numbers to be 30,000 civilians, around there, a 1-to-1 combatant to civilian death ratio in Gaza, which is very, very it's sad. Every civilian death is sad, but when you're talking about sheer numbers, that's for a war, that's actually a low civilian death to combat ratio and combatant to ratio. And what's even worse about this is, and just to give some people a little thought process to think through this, that none of the blame gets put on the Islamic regime in Palestine. For example, Hamas, let's say if Israel did the very same thing Hamas does, instead of building bomb shelters, instead of, protecting their civilians, they dig tunnels underneath their civilians and they militarize hospitals, they militarize schools, they don't have actual military bases. Everyone would be so quick to say that Israel does not care about their civilians and that Israel is, they're the ones that are responsible for their own civilian death. But yet, when we're talking about Hamas, when we're talking about Iran, for some reason, the Islamic regime is nowhere to be. You can't blame them. Apparently, no, they have no responsibility in the death of their own civilians. Hamas is allowing their civilians to basically live in a fishbowl. And then you have the Egyptian border, which does not allow the refugees to leave, to flee Palestine, after Israelis warn the Palestinians about the bombs that are going to come in, and yet Hamas gets none of the blame. And same here, what's happening in Iran. It's so sad that now it's even worse. They're blaming Israel. They're blaming the West for the protests in Iran. And somehow the Iranians didn't have a heart that is back Javid Shah, right? Like you just mentioned, that they want the Shah. And instead it's the Israelis that were flaming the protests, and you have the Americans doing the same. And this is if as a Christian, you don't see this duplicitousness, and you're actually siding with it, then how can you say you're on the right side of history? At the bare minimum, if you don't have a Zionist lens, just on the right side of good and evil, period.
Right. I agree that exactly right. That's very well put. Just on the side of good and evil. Just be for the righteousness, justice, and good. And so again, from that perspective, if you see that a government that is systematically oppressed its people for 47 plus years, that is theocratically run. There is no power in the parliament. There is no power in the presidency. Also, part of the frustration, Iran has not had a actual free election, fair election since the coup happened in 1979, because every election is rigged. So the people have no power. They have no power to vote the people out. They're disarmed, so they have no power to rise up as we could here in America. On a side note, I always encourage people, pray that we never would lose our Second Amendment, that our right to actually defend ourselves, because of the fact that that is how you keep tyrants at bay. Tyranny flourishes both in the red side of this axis, the communists and Marxists and socialists and globalists, but also in the green side of that axis being the Islamic movement. Both sides, when you see them take over, one of the first things they do is they disarm the people. So the Iranians, who have no voting power, they have no financial ability, a lot of them, to leave Iran, and they have no ability to defend themselves other than rocks and bottles and whatever. So you're talking about, this isn't just a modern phenomenon. This is generational. This has happened for the last generation, most of my life. So now, again, just so context, this doesn't just affect Iran. This affects the entire Middle East. This will affect the rapport with Israel, because a free Iran, an Islamic free Iran, by the way, I think we talked about this last time. 2024, there was a survey done inside Iran that surveyed about 50,000 Iranians. And even though the regime claims that they have about 98% Muslim in Iran out of their 92 million people, the survey showed that those identifying as Muslim in Iran was around 32%. So not even 1/3 of Iranians identify as Muslim. They've abandoned Islam because Islam was forced upon them.
Right.
Meanwhile, here in America, we're allowing the Muslims to take over, become mayors, become lieutenant governors, build their mosques, build their cities, and we're giving Islam a hug and a kiss and a smooch and saying how wonderful it is. And the Christians that sit there and say, oh, we have common ground and interfaith and multi-faith. The Iranian people, the mosque attendance before this uprising was less than 8%. The Iranian regime last year admitted 75,000 mosques were sitting empty in Iran. People are not going to the mosque. And that's why when you saw this uprising, they started burning the mosques. What does that tell you? That tells you that they are absolutely done. They're fed up. They want nothing to do with Islam. And even so, unfortunately, some of them don't want anything to do with religion, period, because of this experience. So they want a secular governance. They want freedom of religion. They want freedom to choose. And the only person that has a legitimate plan and has a team put together that is not a Marxist organization, unlike the ones that like Rudy Giuliani and Mike Pence and others on the conservative movement are backing, which is this group called MEK, which, by the way, used to be on the terrorist list, and then they were taken off the terrorist list because they changed their name. Just because changing their name. This is a group that, again, work to undermine the Shah of Iran and sabotage him. They work with the CIA to overthrow the Shah. Then after the Khomeini came in, they thought Khomeini was going to work with them. How many times have we said the green and the red only work together temporarily?
Right.
When the green takes over, the first people they turn against is the red. So Khomeini came to power, and the very first people that he outlawed was MEK.
Right.
So the people that helped him get there, he outlawed them. He jailed some of them, he killed some of them, and then a lot of them fled to Iraq, neighboring Iraq. Then they set up in Iraq, and they worked with Saddam Hussein during the Iraq-Iran war between 1980 and 1988, and they actually fought Iran and killed the Iranians, claiming that they wanted to liberate Iran.
It's crazy.
So now this is the group that you have former military, you have former intelligence people, and you have these politicians backing as if they're the only option when nobody in Iran is shouting their name. Everybody inside and outside Iran is saying, just this past week, there was massive protests of Iranians in Vancouver, Canada, Toronto, Canada, here in the States, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Dallas, across the country. Massive amounts of Iranians have come out. And here's the warning for the Trump administration. President Trump, lots of Iranians voted for you. I voted for you 3 times because I believe he actually won 3 times.
Right.
We will not vote for you again because if you do not keep your word. And again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. You could have said, we're staying out. You could have said, we're not getting involved. You could have said, it's not our problem. You also could have let Israel, again, just simply do what they do best. But you didn't.
Right.
You interfered. You gave a lifeline to this regime back in June, where every single one of us believed that it was that close to toppling. Now, because of your word, Mr. President, these people went into the streets and are dying. So,
And
God
what's so
will
tragic
judge.
about this?
Yeah,
What's
God
so
will
tragic
judge
about
America.
This? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yes, I do agree with you that the judgment for these decisions is impending, and the reason I say that too is that it's what would be the saddest outcome out of all this is all of these Iranian bodies on the street, and yet you still have an Ayatollah.
Right.
That is the most heart-wrenching outcome out of all of this. And the very fact that we had opportunities to seize, whether I mean, you want to be as isolationist or not, like you just said, let Israel finish the job. That's an isolationist position.
Sure.
I mean, why couldn't you allow that? I mean, this duplicitousness. And at the end of the day, the Iranian civilians are dying by the thousands exponential numbers, and yet there's radio silence, and this to me is just very heart-wrenching. I want you guys to see how serious this is, not just for the Iranian civilians. This next video clip is as Shahram mentioned earlier, is a daughter. This lady, she's a daughter of an Islamic senior official of the Islamic Republic here in Iran, and she's calling in to a radio station, and you can hear the panic in her voice. And this to me is another heart-wrenching video. I just want to show you what is really at stake here.
جنایتکار رادان هست. من فقط میخوام یه چیزی رو بگم به مردم ایران، به این سرکوبگرا حواستون باشه. این فرمانده هاتون ساک و چمدوناشون رو بستن. برای من که دخترش هستم، برای مادرم، برای تمام اعضای خانواده‌مون پاسپورت های جعلی درست کردن با اسم مشخصات جعلی که ما رو فراری بدن به خارج. پدر من چمدون دلار تو خونه قایم کرده. مدام با تلفنش منو بگین بیام دادگاه الهه. من یه آدمی زندم، شاهدم که جنایت فقط پدر خود من کرده.
فاطمه جان
الان دستور میده بکشین. من کجا بیام؟ ما اینا نیستیم. من سر جنبش محضا رفتم، منو گرفتن با 3 تا از دوستان، ولی منو شناختن. پدرم اومد منو آزاد کرد. تو همون خونه باتون به سر من شوکر زد، به من
پدرت
باتون زد. که من نرم، ولی دوستامو ول نکردم، به اونا تجاوز شد. ما این درد داره به کی بیایم بگیم؟ بابا این لامصب پدرم، ولی من ازش متنفرم. ما اینا رو نمیخوایم. مردم، ما از خانواده ایناییم.
Oh, that clip goes on for longer than that, and when you if we were to play this whole clip, I mean, she just goes on and on about the atrocities that her father is committing and also trying to make her commit. And we're talking about a daughter of a senior official in the Islamic regime who is calling out the violence in her own family, in her own religious background. And if she's calling this out and it's evil and oppressive, how can we stand by idly as Christians and as Americans, as freedom lovers, as people that want the best for society, just keep our mouths shut about this? This is I'm sorry.
It's obviously I've seen so many clips like that. I've seen so many clips of those who've gotten out of Iran in the last few weeks. I've seen so many clips of family members in Iran who were able to just for a few minutes get a landline, and they're telling their family members, I may not be able to ever call you again, but I just want you to know we're alive, but they're killing us. We're alive, but if help does not come, we have no hope. And I don't mean to just say it's Iran. You know, we are living in a time where we see the worst persecution of Christians in church history. Christians that are being massacred in Nigeria and Sudan and Syria and Pakistan, in Iran, in China. So I'm not just saying it's as an Iranian, I'm not just trying to say, hey, everybody look at us. Please feel bad for us. The Iranian believers have lived through unbelievable persecution to become the fastest growing church numerically in the world. It's happened under tremendous persecution. They don't want anybody to feel sorry for them. They want people to pray for them, pray for boldness, pray for courage, pray for strength, pray that even if they say we're going to kill you or renounce Jesus, that they will have the strength to say, go ahead and kill me. But you heard the sheer panic in her voice. You heard the sheer terror of how afraid she is of her father, that she utterly despises her own father for not only the fact that her friends were raped during the Masa Amini arrest. That's part of the tactic of Islam, right? A part of the tactic of not just this regime, but Islam, is they employ rape to dehumanize their victims, particularly women. You heard her talk about he's got suitcases of cash. He's got fake passports, fake identities, houses outside the country. If you kept playing, she talks about places that he has outside the country.
Yeah.
And yet she's saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. He's going to kill me. So this is but one example. And Jonathan, I would argue this. Romans 13 talks about the proper role of civil authority. It talks about the civil authority is to be an exactor of justice against evil, right? That they're supposed to bring justice, God's justice against evildoers, that we are not to become evildoers. I would argue that by us not acting, our nation, God's given us a civil authority. God's given us the greatest military in the world. And you don't have to go in. And by the way, I do not want America to pick the next leader, because America has been terrible at nation building and regime change. Nobody wants that. The Iranians don't want that. And I think, by the way, you said earlier, I think that's an actual America first policy, right? I'm America first. So therefore, yeah, don't pick. Let the people pick. Let the people in Iran pick. And they're, again, you got to be blind, stupid, dumb, and just willfully ignorant to not see who they're picking, to not see who they're shouting. When they're willing to die to say Javid Shah and say the name of the Shah, when they're willing to die to say Pahlavi will return, that's the crown prince, that's Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah. But for us to not act as a civil magistrate that God has put and given us the freedom, if we have the power to act. When I was a police officer, And if I see a crime happening in front of me, whether it was in my jurisdiction or not. So I was a police officer in a certain jurisdiction, but the way the law worked is even when I was off duty, if I saw a crime being committed in another jurisdiction and I didn't act, I was legally responsible. I could have been criminally charged or civilly sued for not acting because I was a police officer off duty and on duty because I swore an oath for that. So yes, my jurisdiction was here. Okay, Americans, you think all you MAGA America first? Okay, our jurisdiction is America. Okay, let's not go and, but when we see atrocities happening and we have the ability to do something and we don't, I believe God's going to hold us responsible. And worse, you promise it and don't do it, that's doubly worse because now you're not a man of your word. And how does this boast for Trump? How does this boast for America? Where now our enemies see, the Arab Muslim nations do control America. Aha, see, Islam does control America. It's not the Jews that control America. It's actually Islam that is controlling America and American foreign policy. And by the way, this is before Trump. I had a guest on my show last week who used to be in the State Department, served under 5 presidents, and she said this has been a 60-year policy of foreign policy that they didn't like the Shah of Iran because he was too independent. They couldn't control him, and they're not going to support his son. And that's why I think they're supporting this MEK, Marxist Communist Islamic group, as the potential possibility. A few days ago, Trump came out and said Iran needs new leadership. Okay, I agree, Mr. President. Yes, but you don't get to pick it. The people have already picked it. So, as I said, simple solutions. Call Reza Pahlavi into the White House and say, this regime is now illegitimate. The moment they start killing their own people, they're illegitimate. We don't recognize them. We're not going to negotiate with all. It makes me so sick, Jonathan, every time I hear there's a deal to be made. Deal with who? The devil?
Right.
You're going to sit down and negotiate with Satan? Do we sit down as believers and negotiate with Satan? Hey, Satan, can you please leave me alone? Can you please not?
He's the father of lies.
He's the father of lies. It's his nature and the nature of these demonic people in Iran. Unless, yes, okay, people say, well, don't you think they can have a Paul conversion? Sure, they can have a Paul conversion and pray for that. But if they don't have a Paul conversion, then we are to wield the sword in a manner that is for good and against evil. And again, if I'm a police officer, I'm not even a police officer now anymore, but if I see somebody hurting somebody, it is my moral duty to step in and do something. So bring Reza Pahlavi into the White House, recognize him as the choice of the people. The people have spoken loud and clear. We see all the videos inside and outside Iran. That's simple. It should be simple to do, but they can't because all their Arab Muslim handlers, the Qataris and the Saudis, all this trillions of dollars is coming in. You're beholden now. You're beholden. When you take a $400 million plane, you're beholden. When your family, Jared Kushner and Witkoff and all these people have done business deals and are still doing business deals with Qatar, you're beholden. So this is a bigger systematic issue. But so Reza Pahlavi, recognize you. The regime in Iran, we don't recognize you anymore. Second thing, as I said, freeze all their assets. Contact every bank and say, you want to do business with America? You want to do business with America? We are pushing sanctions on the nation of, not just the nation of Iran, but every member of the IRGC, every member of the Basij, every member of the Guardian Council, every member of this regime that has all this money and passports or whatever. We're going to freeze their assets and we're going to put them on a list. And you don't think that Mossad has a list of all these people?
Of course.
If they wanted to, Mossad has been in Iran for decades working undercover. They have a list and they know who's next on the list, right? In June, right? They took out the senior leadership of the IRGC.
Yeah.
Right? So they even know who's next on the list.
Right.
And next after that. They could create a list, put all these people on a watch list so they can't travel. You watch and see And all of everything I'm saying doesn't require one drone and one bomb and one, now, if you want to go that route and strike with your drones and, but now they have a problem because they can't launch from Saudi. They can't launch from
Right.
Qatar. They can't
Right.
launch from Kuwait.
Right.
They're not going to be able to launch
Compromised.
from Turkey. Israel is a bit too far for some of their airplanes or drones. They're going to have refueling. So now you have a problem. So people are telling me, Shahram, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Something is coming. Well, every day that they delay,
Yes.
hundreds, if not thousands more are being murdered. And every day somebody out there is naive enough to believe, oh, they're stopping the executions, when they just admitted on national TV, the head of the judiciary, and that clip was widely circulated. If they go to Iran International, they can see that, that he just said, yeah, of course we told them that, but we didn't mean it. We didn't mean it. We're not going to stop anything. We're expediting the trials. And by the way, a trial, it's a kangaroo court. It's not a trial. There's no due process. There's no jury. There's no, the family don't even know where these people are. It's going before some dude that claims he's an Islamic jurist, and they pass judgment, and then they're executed in secret and nobody knows about it. The only thing most people will eventually find out is when if the body is returned, and then they get a bill. Here's a bill for $15,000. Now, remember, these are people that are suffering just to eat. And can you imagine now? You gotta pay $15,000 American dollars, which is millions of Toman, millions of their currency, to get the body back of your loved one, just so you can bury them, because you got to pay for the bullets. Well, we have to use 5 bullets. It's demonic. It is sick. And I don't understand how we can claim to be a righteous nation. And we saw the Holocaust, right? And we denied the Holocaust was happening. We denied the Germans and the churches in Germany. What did they do? They denied the Holocaust was happening. Let's sing louder. Remember that? Let's sing louder.
Yes.
What are we doing now? What are we doing now? Well, as long as America, as long as we're good, as long as we got lots of money coming in, as long as our economy is good, as long as we got our retirement and whatever. Where is that line? Where is that responsibility that we should be using everything at our disposal to put pressure on evil governments, evil regimes, and stand for justice, whether again it's in Sudan or Nigeria or Syria? And by the way, Trump invites Jelani into the White House, but he won't invite Reza Pahlavi. Trump invites Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia into the White House, Jonathan, but he won't invite Reza Pahlavi because he initially had said, well, it's not appropriate. Well, now the people have spoken, Mr. President, and now what are you going to do? So again, time will tell. We'll see. I don't think this regime can stand. I've said for probably the last 5 to 6 years, they're only standing because they're being propped up. They've only stood because of whether it's China, Russia, or the U.S. They've only stood when Obama gave them $170 billion. They're only standing because they're being propped up. This regime is illegitimate. I don't think it's going to stand. The question is how many Iranians are going to die once finally they collapse. It collapses. And you because they can only bring so many foreign people in. They can only be. By the way, there's another thing you can do, right? Why isn't the United States looking to? Well, Mossad would do this. They would look to maybe do something to those planes that are bringing these foreign people in. They're pretty good at that, right? They're pretty good at the pagers and the cell phones, and now we're getting into some of the anyway, I won't go there, but from a biblical perspective, I think justice is at stake for the claim that we're supposed to be a righteous nation.
Amen.
I don't know.
Powerful and convicting, and as Americans, that what you said, I think, hit the nail on the head in so many different angles. And I know you mentioned something, and we can, as after we talk about this, we can close. But I did want to bring in prophecy in the picture, right? Because you did mention that you do see that this Islamic Republic it will topple. You personally believe that it's just hard to see this standing, and we mentioned, and we haven't really talked much about the Gog and Magog war on this podcast,
Yeah.
but there is prophetic implications about what's happening right now, and I'm curious because I know you just had a podcast with Brandon House and Pastor Dr. Andy Woods, and Pastor Andy, he talks about Gog and Magog a lot, and he mentions that this is obviously from the biblical perspective. He believes that this is end of the tribulation war, at the end of it, where the tribulation period. He looks at it as a tribulation war rather than a pre-tribulation a war that happens. And I'm curious to know the prophetic implications of toppled Ayatollah in Iran. How does that play out in the Gog and Magog war for people that are understand prophecy, understand the Gog and Magog war, and how that there's this last days invasion against Israel, and Iran is in this prophecy is a part of this invasion. And I just always assumed that it was going to be this Islamic regime that was going to be a big force in this. But if we have a toppled Ayatollah, how does that play into prophecy?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think time will tell. Here's what I will say that we know for sure, right? We know that Ezekiel 38:39 is a future war, so it hasn't happened yet. Number one. Number two, the Holy Spirit lists nations by name, and Persia is named by name. Now, at the time that Ezekiel got the prophecy, obviously at that time, Persia was there, right? Because Ezekiel was in, he went into captivity, and who came and toppled the Babylonians? It was the Persians, right? So Persia took over the second half of the 70-year captivity because they brought the captives, Daniel and the cohorts, ultimately into a place called Susa. The book of Esther talks about this, which is modern-day southwestern Iran. There's a city called Shushan, which is where all these things happen in the Old Testament. Iranians believe that the prophet Daniel is buried there. This is where the story of Esther took place. So Persia was there, right? Persia was there. When Ezekiel is getting this prophecy, Persia was an entity. It was already a power, but its boundaries was way bigger than it is today. Just like Israel, right? Where you look at modern day Israel and it's a little sliver compared to, let's say what it was under the time of Joshua or the Judges. So I believe that Persia, what Ezekiel was seeing, was a much bigger land. And as Dr. Woods pointed out last week when we were on the show together, Daniel 10 talks about the prince of Persia, who we know is a demonic presence that was over the region, that was delaying what most of us believe is the archangel Michael, Michael, from coming to Daniel in prayer. Right, when Daniel is praying, and the angel shows up and says he was delayed because of the prince of Persia. So there's a demonic spirit over the region that the Bible called the prince of Persia. Again, we know it's spiritual. I don't believe it was talking about a human leader. It was clearly talking about heavenly warfare, right? That was a spiritual war between the angels and the fallen angels.
Right.
So now, based on that, and based on the fact that we have to look at the geography of Persia during the time of Ezekiel. What did Persia look like when he's seeing this, right? Because we don't know which Persia, right? All that Ezekiel says is Persia is involved.
Right.
And the prince of Persia is involved in that Gog-Magog war. And whether it happens in the beginning of some Bible scholars think, as you said, it's going to happen pre-7-year tribulation, and some believe that it's going to happen at the end of the tribulation. The only problem I have with the end of the tribulation is because Ezekiel talks about Israel will be in unwalled villages, right? So the only reason I have a problem with that is by the end of the tribulation, Israel the Jews are in hiding, right? They've already, the Antichrist has desecrated the third temple. He's taken, he broke the covenant. He's declared himself to be God. I think Revelation 12 kicks in. Remember, the dragon pursues the woman in the desert. So that's my only challenge with it being at the end, because the end of the tribulation is just insanity, right? I mean, you have the wrath of God being poured out. By that time, I believe that the Jews that are left alive are going to be, hidden by God until Christ comes back. So I do tend to lean towards more it being at the beginning of the tribulation, when Israel signs the peace treaty, when they're now in a place of peace. Maybe it's the Abraham Accords. Maybe, Pahlavi said that if this regime topples and he takes over, they would sign what he's calling the Cyrus Accords, where he says if we take the Abraham Accords, we'll go one further. We call it the Cyrus Accord. So all that to say, here's what I think could happen. Persia is mentioned, no doubt. And there's a part of Persia. But at the same time, there's a prophecy in Jeremiah 49 that is yet to be fulfilled, because it says literally there, chapter 49, then verse 37, 38, it says, in the latter days, in the last days, here's what's going to happen, right? That God's going to break the bow of Elam. Now, what is Elam? Elam is the ancient name of Persia. So you go back all the way before Persia and the Medes in the Bible, and you go to Elam. Elam goes all the way back to Noah. The son of Noah, Shem, where you get the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, one of Shem's sons is Elam. So that's why Persians and Jews were actually like brothers. We're actually from the same lineage. We're Semitic. We're not like the Arabs that came from a different line. So now, all that I'm bringing out to be, this prophecy in Jeremiah 49 about Elam is very remarkable, because it talks about God restoring his throne in Elam. Now, the only place that God talks about his throne being restored is in Jerusalem. So here you have one other passage in the entire Bible that I've been able to find where God talks about his throne, and that is in Elam, which is now only the portion. So here's what I think could happen. One scenario is this regime doesn't topple, and it's going to keep power, and it obviously vehemently hates Israel and is going to attack Israel along with probably Russia and other coalitions that's named in 38, right? 38 is mentioned there. Put Libya and Sudan and Turkey, right? Turkey is mentioned 4 times. That's one scenario. Second scenario, it topples. You have a liberated Iran for a time. And the tensions in Iran will lead to Iran then only enjoying a short period of time of liberation, and then it gets overthrown again or sabotaged again, and now that becomes the Persia that's going to go after Israel. So you have a short period of kind of reprieve, and then it goes. That's scenario number 2. Scenario number 3 is, what if Iran liberates, but Persia, which is, again, it was a much broader region at that time, those forces that are within Iran that are going to work with Turkey, Russia, and that coalition, it forces a split in Iran today.
Interesting.
And you have the portion that goes with Gog and Magog, that is still Persia, right? It's still Persia. And then you have another force that then is Elam, that doesn't go, that God breaks the bow, because it says very clearly in 49, he breaks the bow, he destroys their might, he scatters their princes. The people are scattered, and then he will regather them in the last days. So right now there's how there's a Jewish diaspora?
Yeah.
Well, there's a massive Iranian diaspora.
Right.
Millions and millions of Iranians are outside of Iran, and many of them would go back to Iran if it liberated. So those are the 3 scenarios. Sorry for the long explanation again, that I think could happen. Either way, Persia, some element of Persia, which is that prince, which is over the region, which I think it's more not about the geography of modern day Iran. Just like we know the land covenant in Genesis that's promised to Israel isn't the modern borders, right? It says it's from the river Euphrates to the river of Egypt.
It's huge.
In the millennium, God's going to give the tribes of Israel massive amount of land that today the Muslims occupy. So the Muslims have to be defeated. Islam is going to be defeated. But depending on the timing, Persia's involved. But does it mean that's all the people? Or does it mean that's the demonic spirit, that's the demonic angelic spirit that is over the region that is going to side with Gog, Gog, if we believe that to be Russia and the coalition? Because I don't think you're going to ever eradicate, right, the Islamic tentacles within the Middle East until Jesus destroys it. So even if Reza Pahlavi comes in, even if they liberate Iran, there's still going to be a percentage within the region that have nothing. They want nothing more to destroy Israel, kill all the Jews, and do what Islam tells them to do. So I don't think you're ever going to eradicate that until Christ eradicates it. So that's where I'm leaning now towards like scenario 3, where what if there's a split? Elam and, sort of Israel, south and north. And so that fulfills Ezekiel 38, but then also fulfills Jeremiah 49. And Elam is spared, and Elam becomes the place at the end of the tribulation where then Jesus, as he returns, he sets up a throne in Jerusalem, but he also has a throne in Elam, which is, again, it to me, it ties everything together in the Bible. It ties that symbiotic relationship that we see in the Bible between the Persians and the Jewish people. And that's why I think that some of the greatest supporters of Israel today are Iranian Zionists like me.
Oh, it's amazing when you see the connection between the two all over social media. I mean, on the good side of things, you see the Iranians and the Jewish people coming together more than any other, a relationship with Israel, I would say. Of course, Americans have a real strong relationship, a remnant of Americans, and then obviously the UK in histories in times past before they started flipping on Israel, they had a strong relationship. But this Iranian Jewish relationship with Israel, to me, is right now is strong. It's so strong, and it's very encouraging to see that. And
Jonathan,
I think
go and watch any of the videos right now of all these rallies that the Iranians are having. Two things you're going to see. You're going to see the actual Persian flag. The Persian flag of Iran is the one that has the lion on it with the sword and the sun. Not the Islamic flag. That's the first thing you're going to see. Do you know in every rally that I've seen across the world, you know what other flag they have there? The Israeli flag.
Wow.
So here you have Persians standing for a free Iran, and within that, you have those same Iranian Persians, some of them are Christians, who are saying also, we're going to stand with Israel. The first thing Reza Pahlavi will do, if he can set up a transitional government, is normalize relationship with Israel. That's the first thing he said he's going to do. So, and then he actually has said, and Israel, who has all the brains, he's actually said they have such smart people, they have technology. We're going to ask them to come help us rebuild Iran. He said that publicly as part of his plan. We're going to ask Israel, who have all, because one of the things right now Iran is the drought. There's a drought in Iran. I think that's God's judgment. There's a drought in Iran. Water is a problem. Well, who's great at being able to make water in the desert? The Jews. The Jews are amazing at being able to desalinate and make water in the desert. So Reza Pahlavi's already said, we're going to ask them for help. We're going to ask them for technology to rebuild Iran. And in 2 to 5 years, we can rebuild Iran and make it what it was, even better than it was under his father. And so that's what we're hoping for. That's what we're praying for. I'm praying for the day that I get to go back to Tehran and preach the gospel in the streets. Not to live there, but just to go there and say, unless the Lord says, go, but that freedom to be able to go and preach the gospel. Meanwhile, here in America, we have that freedom and we're not taking advantage of it. We have that freedom and we're not going and evangelizing these Muslims who are planning to take us over.
Wow.
Anyway.
No, so many good things you said here, and I really do appreciate your perspective on the Gog and Magog. That was the first time I've ever heard of that perspective, so I'm gonna chew on that, and I'm gonna digest that because I really do think that's a very very good perspective. And I would say for anyone who's watching this, pray for the Iranian people. At the bare minimum, pray for them, and show your solidarity with them spiritually speaking, because at the end of the day, these people are being slaughtered and oppressed, and God is on the side of freedom and of liberty, especially of these people, and and there's Christians out there. There's so many reasons to support them. So pray for the Iranian people. I'm gonna do my best to pray for the Iranian people. I'm gonna do my best to in this ministry. We are Sanctify Israel, but we are standing for this because it's bigger than just a small little Zionist ministry. This is about a freedom and it's about morality and good and versus evil. So I truly think this is important for everyone to understand. And I thank you so much for you sharing all of these perspectives that I think is so important for all of us to just digest and chew on. And I thank you for the Gog and Magog perspective. That's a very very good one, and I hope that anyone watching this has just been edified and learned so much out of this podcast. So Shahram, I just want to thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure.
Brother, it is my honor. I love being on with you. I love our discussions. It blesses me. It edifies me. Again, I pray that if it's helpful, just to at least have conversation. Look, if nothing else, we know the King of Kings and Lord of Lords is coming back. There are those things that are going to happen, but at the end of the day, he is victorious. And the greatest hope for the Iranian people is the greatest hope for us here in America. It's Christ. It's the gospel. It's the hope of salvation, because life is fleeting. Life can end in a second. So I want to encourage everybody listening to this, not just pray for the Iranian people, pray for boldness here in the American church, that again, as what you guys did there in Sugar Land, where you went and stood in the town square when the Muslims came to take it over and declare it for their false god. You guys courageously stood up and said, we're going to answer back. And we're going to answer back with spiritual weapons, with prayer and worship and preaching of the gospel. And you guys did a beautiful job in worship. And so that's our solution. I want to encourage people, you better do that now, because the Islamic movement, by the way, in Texas, the Islamic movement has declared Texas is one of their 5 top targets in the world. They want Texas, because they think if Texas can be turned, America will be turned. So that's why I'm going to be back in Texas, Lord willing, a lot this year, and we're going to try to wake up God's people in Texas and say, this is the hour. Let's listen to the Iranians. They're willing to die to say we're done with Islam, we're done with this theocratic rule, we're done with Sharia, we're done with being forced. They want liberty. Let's learn that lesson here before it's forced upon us, and stand up now. So thank you, Jonathan. God bless you. God bless your audience. And until next time, thank you again for having me on.
God bless you, and praise God for your ministry and everything you're doing, and may God continue to use you effectively and mightily, especially in America and Texas. I'm just so grateful that you're targeting Texas, and you're making sure that your ministry is here, because we as Texans we want the best for our state. So we really appreciate the ministry you're doing here, and so God bless you, Pastor Shahram.
Thank you, brother. God bless you guys. Until next time.